Hi, welcome everybody. My name's Clark Morrill and I'm from EON. I'm from EON's new business, which is focused on delivering energy solutions to our customers. And today I'm going to talk to you about one of those solutions, which is lighting. I'll try and make it as relevant as I can for the audience, but please ask questions as we go along. There will be some time at the end, but put your hand up, ask a question, let's make it interactive. And make sure you get what you want out of this presentation. Okay, so the purpose of the presentation today is really to introduce you to the topic of lighting, which on its own is maybe not quite as interesting for everybody as it is for me, but lighting as part of an integrated solution which can help businesses improve energy consumption, operational costs, I think is really important. And what we're seeing now is that lighting is probably one of the first or second things that a business would look to do when trying to make some energy reduction or improve on their overall operational costs. Hopefully I'll help you raise your awareness levels and your knowledge levels. Obviously I don't know how much involvement you've had, but I'll share with you what I know and the experiences that we've got, and hopefully that'll help to raise your awareness. I'll also highlight some of the benefits of lighting and lighting solutions and how they can help you and the benefits that they can bring to your business. And then finally, I'll just finish off with explaining what we're doing as EON in that space and how that's part of our sort of new energy world in helping customers with energy solutions. So just a little bit of context. When we talk about lighting, it's about lighting as a total energy solution. Energy is a key topic now for lots of businesses. And when we talk to customers, we're really looking to help them answer these questions. You know, how can I reduce my energy bill? Can I produce my own energy? Can I implement measures that will reduce energy, improve the working environment, help the people? Are there any regulatory considerations, any legislations that we need to think of, particularly in the different countries? And ultimately, how can I make this happen? How can I implement these measures? Who can help? So that's really the top level questions that we look to help our customers with. And then when we look at the solutions that we can provide, there's a whole range there. Lighting is obviously the most important, but there's a variety of solutions, technologies that can be implemented in a variety of buildings, whether it's an industrial building, an office, a school. These technologies are available and we can integrate them together and build it into a total package, including finance, based on your specific needs. So as I mentioned, we're going to specifically focus in on lighting today. But before we start, just a quick sort of show of hands around the room. Who's had some involvement in lighting in any way? It might be that you've bought some new LED lighting for your home, which has probably been quite an interesting experience. Or you've actually been involved directly with procuring lighting or solutions for your business or for some projects in your business. So just a quick... Okay. So maybe the knowledge levels are quite high then, which is good. Yeah, I think that's sort of. It's nice to see that people are now starting to either get involved in lighting and recognise that even in the home, making some really simple changes can save you some energy and hopefully improve the lighting in your home or in the business. Okay, so based on your excellent knowledge levels, we'll have a short quiz. Just a bit of fun, nothing too serious. So in terms of worldwide electricity consumption, how much of that consumption is allocated for lighting? And when we say lighting, it could be the lighting in this room, it could be a street light, it could be a bollard, it could be the lighting in your home. So how much lighting is consumed by energy? Is it 5%? Nope. Up to 19%? Or up to 33%? Okay, the answer is 19%, which it's not as high as 33%, but I think it's a really significant number. And obviously there's a huge amount of street lighting. I think on the first image, that was an image of Europe. And wherever you see the jewels or the sparkling lights, that's effectively all the street lighting across Europe. And when you see that orange glow, that basically means it's inefficient because it's the old sodium yellow lighting consuming, thousands of watts. Okay, now when we think about the actual commercial buildings, the offices, the industrial sites, the schools, the hospitals, on average, how much of that consumption is then related to lighting? So we've got 10%, 40%, and 55%. Anybody want to give me a guess? 40. Yes, you're right. Now obviously every building's different. Every use of that building is different, but on average, lighting can account for around 40% of that total energy consumption, which again is quite a significant number. And then the last one is making that switch from an old inefficient light to a new modern LED lighting. What are the energy savings that can be achieved from doing that? So we've got 30%, 60%, and 90%. Anybody want to have a guess? Okay, so it's 90%. And I'll give you an example of where that energy saving can come from on the next slide. So I think, although lighting's maybe not as important to everybody, I think what we can recognize is that even if you take one solution and you look at the percentage savings that can be accounted for, that they're fairly significant. Okay, if we think about the main advantages and benefits of energy efficient lighting, and we'll also include controls, because I think as we start to look at solutions, it's not really about selling product, it's about creating a solution that best optimizes the energy and the overall benefit for the customer. So these are the main benefits. We've obviously got the reduction in energy and then the associated carbon. So maybe that you've got a carbon reduction commitment. And then as a result of that energy reduction, there's obviously the operating cost. We can improve the overall quality of light. So you may change from a really dull yellow light to a nice bright light, making it a nicer place to work. You can improve the light levels, and you can change the color and the flexibility to make it a better environment to work in. I've been involved in some projects recently where I've got into a power station and the employees are actually walking around with torches strapped to their hard hats because they just can't see what they're doing. And it's, immediately when we've changed the lighting, everybody's, much happier. It's a nicer place to work. The life of the products is now much longer, so you get the associated benefits of that longer life. You get the reduced maintenance, and also something that's maybe not quite as obvious, but if you're reducing the maintenance of lighting that's 5 meters up in the air, you're reducing the health and safety risks there. So people working at heights is a problem. If there's no need to maintain those lights, then you're reducing that risk. You can actually improve the well-being of the people in the building. There's some very good studies going around where lighting in hospitals, and particularly in the recovery areas, has meant a faster recovery for the patients. So getting bed time in hospitals is quite an important fact. Improving the lighting, making the people heal quicker and feel better, gets them through the hospital quicker, and that's a big thing for the health authorities. And then last but not least is with lighting and controls, you can basically have the lighting when you need it, when you want it. So we've all been into rooms where the lights have just been left on all day and the lights are burning and consuming energy. Really simple controls means that when there's people in the room, the lights are on, and when there's nobody in the room, the lights go off. And if there's daylight coming in from the windows, maybe you can adjust the lighting, again, to make some extra savings. And what's really important is when when discussing these benefits with a customer or with the people procuring the solutions is to make sure that you understand what the priorities of these benefits are. There's no point, talking about energy if actually the customer's drive is about creating a better place to work. So it's about understanding how these benefits can help your specific businesses. Okay, so it's as simple as changing a light bulb. I think we've all heard that term. Just to try and make it sort of tangible, I think this is quite a recognisable light bulb that we have in our homes. Fairly common 50-watt lamp. This is probably the most common product in the whole of Europe. Some houses have 20, 30, 40 of these, all consuming 50 watts. And if you take a typical LED replacement, that product would consume 5 watts. And that's where the 90% comes from. Fairly simple, 50 watts, 5 watts. And then the actual monetary value of those savings is about how long those lights are operating for. And we take a typical use case in a home, and if you change one of these bulbs and you have it for a year, you will save around £5, which in terms of payback effectively means you're paying back for that product in around a year. And these same statistics apply fairly generally throughout all of the different lighting that we have now. I quite often spend 5 minutes in B&Q and I watch the people going up and down the lighting aisle, which is a bit sad, I know, but and I see them stood there with their light bulb in their hand, a typical old incandescent light bulb, and they walk up and down and they can't find what they're looking for because they want 60 watts or 100 watts, and they see 5 watts and they go, well, that's not going to work. And quite often they'll walk out and they'll say, well, I can't find anything. And so although it's as simple as changing a light bulb, actually the technology has advanced, but the way of selling and the way of explaining these products hasn't really caught up. So although it's simple, there are lots of different things we need to think about now. The terminology lumens, I mean, why would the general public understand lumens? But that's a terminology now that the lighting industry seems to want to use. So it's maybe not quite as simple as changing a light bulb. So in terms of commercial buildings and B2B customers, there are now LED equivalents for every type of product in your buildings, whether it's a high bay industrial, whether it's an office, whether it's a school with particular lighting. There are effectively equivalent replacements. In all cases, these replacements will offer similar savings. And we typically say around 50 to 60%. And that's purely based on replacing, if we take the first example, 400 watts of consumption with around 180 watts of consumption. So very simple to understand and very tangible savings. And then in terms of the costs associated with that, again, it's down to how long do you use your lights for, and that's where you get your kilowatt hours, and that's the important number in terms of, saving the money. On top of that, we mentioned before about lighting and controls. If you add controls into your solution and into your building, you will make greater savings. And in some cases, we've seen as much as an additional 30, 40%. So I think it's really important now that we don't just think about buying a box full of light bulbs, we think about buying a solution that best meets the needs of the buildings and the needs of the people. Solutions. So there's lots of things on here that we should be thinking about when investing in procuring new lighting. I won't go into all of them, but we've got the front end where we're trying to understand what are the objectives, what do we want to achieve, what's really causing the customer problems. Is it an energy target? Is it a carbon reduction commitment? Is it the well-being of the people? So it's about understanding and listening to the customer and translating that into a solution. And when we talk about solutions, these are all the things we now need to think about. So on the left-hand side, I'll use the pointer, you could have a solution that means we will do a very simple replacement of the lamps or the tubes or the bulbs, because that might be the right solution for the customer. And then at the other end, you've got, which is where the lighting and building management area is moving, where you're really starting to think about collecting data, the Internet of Things. So lighting is now seen as an enabler to move into this space. So if you can imagine a retail space like Tesco's, Asda, where their product sales is very sensitive, by collecting data through the lighting around where are people in the space, what's their movement patterns, where's the hotspots, that retailer can then look at that data and say, okay, well, most of the people come into the shop, turn left and go down aisle 1. Therefore, if we want to sell more of this product, we should position it in this way. So the connection between lighting and data and then creating value-added services is something that is now part of this solution consideration. I use the Rolls-Royce Skoda, and it's quite a sort of good example of what is it that the customer wants. Does he want a Skoda? Very functional, very practical, reasonable cost, but still a good quality level. Or does he want something with some extras, some options, some big alloy wheels, some leather seats, maybe he wants a Rolls-Royce. And it's really important to understand what the customer wants. Is it a Skoda or is it a Rolls-Royce? And as part of that solution, we have to consider the local legislation. So for the UK, there may be some specific standards, some European norms, some particular incentives. And we would also look at that for the other countries. What are the local considerations that we have to take? So a couple of real examples just to hopefully help you sort of understand when we talk about lighting, solutions, products, and how they would relate to typical buildings. Now, the first thing is there's no such thing as a typical building, so straight away these examples are only as good as the time that I put them together. But if we take typical industrial, typical office, then we can see the benefits that replacing that lighting can bring. And I think if we, the wattage, the reduction in energy is an important one. And then what we're seeing is that typical paybacks, return on investments, are now at a point where they're becoming really attractive. If you go back 3 or 5 years, the return on investments were 8, 10 years, and it just wasn't attractive enough. But in most cases now, we're able to get these return on investments down to a really nice sort of 2 to 4 years. And again, every project's different, and every project will have different variables. And it might be that in certain projects, the energy savings is not important. So projects might be about relighting a building to make it a more attractive building to lease. Leasing a building with good lighting, better green credentials might be far more important than actually the energy saving or the return on investment. So again, it's about understanding the customer, understanding the requirements, and putting a solution together. That's not quite right. Okay, so in terms of what we can offer, we offer a lighting service, and it's very important that we distinguish between trying to sell products and trying to provide a service. And we're very much on trying to deliver solutions and services. We're technology agnostic, and we manage the entire value chain to make sure that we can control the project on behalf of the customer. We have kind of 6 key areas that we look at. We've mentioned technology agnostic. I think one of the other ones is the financing. So customers tend to have CapEx constraints. Maybe they want to put their CapEx into more more critical elements of the business. Bringing financial options is really important. One of those is a full energy performance contract where we will fund and guarantee the savings, which for some customers is really important. And we look to build on our existing energy relationships. So can we take the customer on a journey, moving from what was traditionally a commodity-based discussion, selling gas and electric, but now moving that more towards how can we help you improve your business and bring energy solutions. And we can bundle. So lighting, as I said, is just one solution. Can we bundle that to make it a more attractive package? We've mentioned some of these before. It's not just about saving energy, enhancing the environment, reducing operational and maintenance costs, reducing health and safety risks, employee well-being. All these things need to be factored in when we discuss the solution with the customer. Our approach is what we call the solution designer model, and effectively that just means providing a turnkey solution. So from that first discussion with the customer, with the key account manager, or the procurement colleague, or the on-site maintenance, the facilities manager, whoever that point of contact is, it's taking them through a complete service and making sure that we can deliver at each point. So we'd come and do an energy audit, lighting would be identified, and then we'd specifically focus on developing a solution for that. We'd deal with the design, we'd deal with the contract, the installation, the ongoing maintenance, and then any after sales or support that's needed to continue that relationship. And what's important is that we provide the best technical and commercial solution. Okay, this one's probably a little bit more relevant to you guys. So you're the experts in procurement, and I just wanted to highlight that the procurement elements of lighting is becoming more important. We often see now that products coming into Europe are stopped by customs. This is a thing that happens regularly now, particularly products coming in from the Far East. Customs will look very closely at those products, and they will question the documentation, the quality, the reliability, and the person buying and bringing those products into Europe will be the first person held accountable. So as a customer and as a supplier to our customers, we have to be absolutely assured that what we're bringing into Europe, what we're selling to our customers, is robust, quality, and compliant with the European regulations. So we've invested a lot of time in developing this process. We've been out to China, we've audited factories, we've taken products, we've tested them, and we've actually found products from very reputable companies. I won't name names, but big, well-known lighting manufacturers, and when we've tested them, they've failed. And they've immediately been taken off the approval list. So you guys know probably better than me the importance of procuring the right products at the right price with the right conditions. And that's something that we really pride ourselves on, making sure that when we put forward a solution, it can be EON assured, if you like. Okay, a case study. You mentioned earlier about rubber tyres, which was quite good. This is just an example of a customer that we've worked with over the past 5 or 6 years, and this is a customer that continually tenders, puts us through a fairly rigorous tendering process, and year on year we've been able to satisfy their requirements and deliver a number of solutions, lighting being one of them. And you can see the energy savings can be fairly substantial, and this is based on an energy performance contract. So we guarantee to the customer the level of energy that they will have, and therefore the spend. And then this one was mentioned in the program. This was our first ever commercial installation of energy efficient lighting. I think maybe going back 5 years, we totally refurbished our our office in Nottingham, and we replaced all of the lighting, and we made substantial energy savings and substantial operational cost savings. And although at the time this wasn't the main priority for the project, we actually discovered two other things which were really important. One was that the number of occupational health complaints was reduced by 60%. So these were the people working at the desks who had a problem with the lighting and were complaining of headaches, flicker, that they couldn't see what they were doing, and they'd made a formal complaint to the occupational health department. Those complaints reduced by 60%. And then about 6 months later, I had a call from the facilities manager saying that for some reason his air conditioning bill had gone down and he couldn't explain it. And then when we thought about it, it was actually because of the new lighting reducing the amount of heat put into the space. His air conditioning load was reduced by around 15%. So it was a really good learning experience for us, with a real building, with real findings, and we've used that as a good case study to, to hopefully demonstrate to our customers the real benefits. So in summary, lighting can help your business. It can help reduce costs, reduce energy, but it can also make it a better place to work. We're now finding that it's an integral part of a solution. When we're looking at customers' buildings and potential measures, lighting is becoming more and more common. We're also finding that customers are genuinely interested in implementing these measures. So we're having customers ask, can you help us with our lighting? Could you recommend something that we could do? Which is nice to hear. The costs and the implementation are now attractive. The costs are low. And in terms of complexity, it's one of the most simple things to do, maybe as a first step, and to build that confidence and that trust. And the ROIs are now down to a position where it's attractive enough. There are solutions and technologies available for all applications, from high masts, 40-meter high, to underground car parks. There's a solution there for all those applications. And the procurement around those products and solutions now needs to be smart. We've talked about, it's not just about the cost, it's about the functionality, making sure they're quality assured, that we've got the test reports. All of those things needs to be considered. And finally, we can help, we can advise. We've got some colleagues here today that can answer questions. I'm here, so I can answer questions. And I think that's the last slide. So yeah, thanks for your attention. Would welcome questions. I think we're good on time, probably too quick. But yeah, if anybody's got any immediate questions, then raise your hands.
Right, we talked a lot about the savings, which is great, fantastic. A lot of that will be governed by the cost of the commodity in any case. So I presume you work with businesses with procurement of commodity, because I see that's where you obviously get even better savings and greater savings, and it's hard to quantify the numbers that you put up there because they'll be governed by the cost of the commodity anyway. So absolutely. How are you first of all, how are you actually judging that? How are you putting that forward? And then secondly, do you work with companies on the commodity itself?
Yeah, so if we look at the sensitivities in any commercial offer for lighting, there's the inefficiency of your existing system. There's how many hours you use the lighting, and then thirdly, it's the cost of the commodity. And that is usually the biggest influence on getting that return on investment. I'll maybe be corrected here, but I think we try to disconnect ourselves slightly from the commodity sale. The new EON is about selling solutions. We know that the commodity price is one of the most important points.
You could be working with consultants at the same time. For instance, you're looking after that side of things and the commodity side of things.
Yep.
We'll come in and say, well, hang on, let's look at this as a separate.
Yeah. It could be our customer, and the opportunity has been discussed through one of our existing commodity CAMs. It could be that it's been discussed through an inquiry. We've done an ESOS audit is sometimes a good way to start that. But yeah, absolutely, the commodity price and the attractiveness of the solution is probably the two that link together the closest.
So I've just got one point. In terms of obviously tracking consumption, it's key.
Yep.
So if you've got a client who hasn't got smart meters, is it something that you can roll out as a kind of combined product offering? So one, they can actually track what they use, and more importantly, then relay it back to guaranteed savings. Yeah.
So smart meters are a product in themselves, you know, with a particular rollout and a plan. Within our performance contracts, we would have to measure, monitor, verify, and guarantee those savings. And if there isn't the existing meters to do that, then we would bring our own metering solution, and that would be agreed within the contract that every month that value is checked and verified and obviously aligned with what we've guaranteed. Now, if we're above, then that's our risk. If we're below, great, you know, everybody wins there. But yeah, we would absolutely install the relevant meters to guarantee. It's a fundamental part of that performance contract.
So when you build solutions for your customers, so how many times do you consider use of natural lighting as a balance and an alternate solution or a complementary solution to, let's say, replacing a bulb? So how many times do you do that?
Every time. So if we were to look in this building here, you know, there's not a lot of natural daylight, so we would consider how much daylight would come in from the windows. Maybe there's some skylights, and then if there is a significant contribution, that's where you would then recommend some sort of dimming control. And all that would do is it would constantly monitor and adjust to only turn the lights on to the level that's required to keep the working plane at the right level. So in every situation, we would always look at the external environmental factors, and in most cases, there usually is some daylight to use. But it's part of the solution design.
Okay, thank you.
So being an energy company, how do you, when you talk about solutions to your customers, how do you internally justify to your business that the solutions are better than transactional relationship with your clients?
It's always been a good topic of debate. I think prior to the new company structure, that was always a point of tension. So when I first started in energy solutions, we had a small team called Emerging Technologies, and we were sat at a power station with the generation people. And they looked at this team and thought, are you lot crazy? You know, we're trying to generate electricity and sell electricity. You've got a team here trying to reduce energy and electricity. This is crazy. The new company structure removes a lot of those tensions. So the new EON, its whole focus now is on energy solutions and reducing energy. And the commodity side, the generation side, has now moved into the new business called Uniper. So the company as a whole understood the two markets were going in different directions, and they made the big decision to split so that our part of the business now can absolutely focus on energy solutions without that continual tension between the generation and the commodity side.
The solution from EON, can you go and buy energy from somewhere else?
Again, every customer is different. If your existing commodity supplier is another one, let's just say EDF, then of course you can come to EON for your solution. It might be that we can also bundle a better tariff, but that isn't our sole focus. Now, our sole focus is to help you with a solution, whether we are or are not your commodity supplier. So we can now separate them, which is great.
Do you find that businesses get the benefits of LED now? You know, they want themselves to implement it, or are you finding that there's still some resistance out there? For example, you talked about payback being maybe up to 4 years. If businesses with a more short-term view might find that a barrier to rolling it out.
Yeah, again, if we go back maybe 4 or 5 years, the discussions we were having were, why LED? I don't trust LED. I bought some LEDs for the home and they were rubbish. they failed after 6 months. So the discussion was more about why the technology rather than today. I think fundamentally that the technology barrier has been crossed. There are still some skepticism, I think maybe, right? There's been a lot of bad press, products that are unsafe, cheap Chinese imports, etc. But I think we've got over that technology discussion. Then it was about getting the pricing down to the point where it was worth discussing. And then it's down to the individual solutions. So if you have a business that has a target for a 2-year payback, you're maybe looking at a Skoda with a simple solution. If you're happy to stretch that out to 3, 4, 5 years, maybe that's where you can get your Rolls Royce with the controls integrated with BEMS, starting to collect data. So it's having that flexibility to make sure that if the ROI is the absolute target, we can put something together that meets those targets.
Just one from me over here. So back to the savings and Chap's point over there. Do you do anything before and after to actually prove the real benefits? I understand the ROI and I understand the paper exercise. And I'm not, funny enough, we're running a project at the moment to implement LEDs. But is there anything you guys do to prove?
Yes. So most of the solutions are based on either having done an audit. So ESOS is an audit that bigger companies have to now do as a business. Or we will do an independent energy audit, which would look at everything associated with energy in the building. If lighting's identified and agreed with the customer as something of interest, we would then implement metering to baseline the existing consumption.
Metering
on the lighting circuits themselves. So if we're looking to guarantee the savings, we have to know exactly what the existing consumption is, because with the best will in the world, it's very difficult, even for the customer, to know exactly how long were those lights on for in that building, and well, the cleaners came in over there, and that building never gets used. So we will actually monitor and verify the existing. We would then look at the solution and calculate the savings, because the lighting is quite simple. You've got an existing wattage and you've got an after wattage. As soon as you know the hours of operation, it's a very tangible saving. And then we would verify and continue to monitor those savings to prove them over the duration of the contract. So yeah, to actually monitor the lighting individually is quite complex in some cases, but it's absolutely fundamental that we get that baseline.
To what extent are you finding that, call them developers, but you could include planning consultants, architects and what have you, are engaging with you when it comes to ensuring a greater level of success in planning approvals for new build, as being part of I guess we go back to the sustainability agenda and what have you. Or is most of your work actually just reactive, retrospective on current build?
Yes,
because it strikes me that one of the big issues of BREEAM is it sort of ticks lots of boxes, but the effort to actually achieve points on the current BREEAM ratings is sometimes it's very easy to get high points on things like sustainability by going, sustainable transport by going, we'll put some bike racks in.
Yeah.
You get quite a lot of marks for that one. But things like water recycling and what have you are a lot more expensive to put into a building for relatively low returns on the BREEAM scale. So my thought is that against that, practically in the big world where we've already got buildings, there is a lot to say. But it would be nice if the new build world was waking up.
So I think if we look at a rough percentage of the projects delivered in what we call refurbishments, so existing buildings where they're looking to improve versus new build, I think the new build would be a single-digit percentage. And that's really because at the new build, there's usually a main contractor, a sub-mechanical, a sub-electrical, an architect, a designer, and we would find ourselves maybe a little bit further down the supply chain there. We can, of course, be involved in new build and give the advice around BREEAM and energy and the best measures, but we tend to be a little bit further down in the supply chain on those. So we tend to focus our core business on the refurbishment market. But the same recommendations could also be built into the BREEAM assessment. But it's not.
I guess it's that sort of sense of it'd be sensible to actually make sure we get things right first time from the start.
Yeah.
On as many new projects as we can. But it's perhaps a little bit disappointing that maybe those conversations aren't going on with the people who are influencing decisions, such as say architects, planners, and contractors.
Yeah, we tend to 95% for refurbishment.
I rather suspected that was the case.
Just as you mentioned earlier about the university sector, one of the things that they're asking for from all larger contractors at the moment is how do you add value beyond just the service that you're delivering? That value, whether it's apprenticeships or community engagement, stakeholder engagement, so that social impact. Have you got any examples of how you've done that with past projects, or is it something you're considering?
Yes, it's definitely considered, especially when we're talking with businesses or with customers that have more of a city strategy in mind. So we have a sustainable cities team who absolutely look at the social, the well-being, and look at employing local contractors, looking at bringing in local apprentices. How can we involve the community in making the decision? And we do that in not just the UK, we do that in other countries. One of the projects in Malmö in Sweden is all about creating a safe place for people to meet in the city. So it's not about energy, it's not about making money, it's about can we create a square in the centre of the city where people are happy to come and socialise. And they're just using lighting as a way of making people feel safe, because a well-lit area is naturally, or appears a naturally more safer place to be. So yeah, that's absolutely part of the overall sort of solution, but usually more from a city municipality level. Are we about done? I don't know how we're good for time. Yeah? Okay. No problem.